everybody, and welcome to the show. Around the Nation right here, TYT Nation. Jeff Waldorf here with you on this Wednesday afternoon. Welcome. Got a great show for you guys today. Of course, we're going to talk about AOC versus Nancy Pelosi. You want to guess who was right in that little dust-up over a recent immigration bill? Or I should say bill to address the migrant detention / concentration camps. But we'll get into that. I don't want to give away too much. We also have drug companies doing what drug companies do, jacking up your prices. How much? And is the administration doing anything about it? And I'm going to have a strange, slight defense of Donald Trump. What? What is going on? But wait. There was something that the administration tried to do that got rejected, and we'll talk about that. Then we have Ilhan Omar versus Tucker Carlson. This may be one of I'm sorry, slip of the tongue. This may have been one of Tucker Carlson's most racist rants against Ilhan Omar. We're going to talk about that. And Brazil, what's going on in the rainforest? It should disturb everyone, and I've got the details on what's going on and, of course, who is backing it. So, fun show for you guys today. Here's what we're going to do first before we dive into it. First, I want to ask everybody to please like and share the stream. Very, very important that you guys do that. Very helpful to get this out to as many eyeballs as possible. It really, really helps. Secondly, we're going to thank some patrons because that also helps the show. So I want to thank Barrett Keller, Battle Axe, Ben, Adam Johnson, Beth Weinman, and Brian White. So thank you to those patrons. Then let's go thank a couple of channel members. We have Frederick Turner, Zach Sherman, and Pascal Filth. So thank you to those people who support us on channel memberships, as well as, of course, patreon.com/TYTNation. All right. Some more fun stuff. So July 30th, there will be a Revolution rally in Detroit that is hosted by the Young Turks. And I'm making plans to show up. So that's going to be fun. So I'm thinking about bringing my camera and maybe doing some interviews if you guys are there. Talk to you guys about issues. Maybe do some, stuff for the channel. Maybe film the rally. We'll see what happens. Heck, maybe I can get a few TYT hosts and talk to them as well about issues, which should be really, really fun if I'm able to do it. So Revolution Rally, that's July 30th. So 20 days. Also happens to be my wife's birthday. So working on my wife's birthday, but don't worry, we're going to make a day of it. It should be a lot of fun. I know. She's like, really? That's my birthday. I know, guys. I know. Oh, well. Really important thing. I don't want to miss that because, again, that's the Democratic debates. So it's possible I might even catch some politicians. It should be really, really interesting as well to post on our channel if we can get a word from some of the people running in the 2020 election in the Democratic primary. Does she enjoy politics? No, she gets very angry at politics. Very angry at Donald Trump. So that kind of answers your question. I mean, she's like, I'm glad you handled the politics because I get too enraged. Fair enough, and you do not want to see that woman enraged, let me tell you. Nonetheless, she, every once in a while, she comes out and she does a massive rant against Donald Trump and how much she despises him. So, at least she's right on the issues. And, of course, is a fan of Bernie Sanders, of course. So, I have taught her well. Let's just say that. Okay. Anyway. All right. So, let's start out with Donald Trump's cocaine parties. Yeah. What What an intro. What a segue here. All right. Boom. Now, following the arrest of billionaire Jeffrey Epstein on sex trafficking charges involving children as young as 14 years old, the relationships of the rich and powerful who tended to pal around with Mr. Epstein are now also being scrutinized, as they should. Now, the Epstein thing, I mean, there's so many different angles to this. There's so many different things that are currently going on in regards to this. You've got, them looking into his house, which, I mean, literal house of horrors, right? You also have them looking into, the deal with Trump, Alexander Acosta, which is in the Trump cabinet now, and how he got a sweetheart deal where, he went to prison for 1 day a week, ended up working 16 hours a day, being outside of prison. So, I mean, he got this super, super sweetheart deal. Alexander Acosta. And, oh, look at that. He happens to be in the Trump administration. And one of the people that had really close ties with Epstein happened to be Donald Trump. Weird. And that's, of course, the relationship that they're looking into. And by the way, Donald Trump is not the only person that was close with Jeffrey Epstein. You also had people like Prince Andrew, Mohammed bin Salman, and former President Bill Clinton. So now, again, this guy is very wealthy, very, very connected, and just happened to, have be involved in a child sex trafficking ring. Where's all those QAnon people? Where are you guys? This is what you say you're against. It just so happens that Donald Trump happens to be, or happened to have been tied to him. And let me get to the details on that. Now, there's one alleged report that actually came out around 2016, the time of the 2016 election. And it was shared by a reporter named Michael Gross. And what it did is it talked about alleged cocaine parties at Donald Trump's resort involving Jeffrey Epstein. Now, the future president and Epstein reportedly were the only two guests at one Mar-a-Lago party in 1992. In that party, Trump arranged to have 28 women flown in for a calendar girl contest. And I say women because really, in reality, who knows? There were a lot of them could have been underaged. So not necessarily women, but teenagers, girls, children, right? Now, according to Gross, who has covered real estate developer and former reality TV star since 1985, Trump was once known for throwing cocaine-fueled parties where teen models as young as 15 had been introduced to the real estate developer's rich older friends. Now, this was reported by the Daily Beast back in 2016. So already super gross. And you're flying in a bunch of girls, young girls, to be paraded in front of your old, creepy, rich friends. That's nasty, dude. Nasty. Now, Gross spoke nearly 3 years ago to two men who had attended those parties back in the 1990s. Both men revealed the role that Donald Trump had in those parties. Now, they said that girls as young as 15 years old were lured to the parties with the promise that they would meet well-connected men who might help them enter the modeling industry. And it's not, look, they wouldn't just, find them here in America, but Epstein had specific people, women, that would go out and find these girls, sometimes in Eastern Europe and in other places all over the world. So they would lure these girls back to these hotels for these cocaine parties, right? Now, I wonder what these older men who are in the industry wanted in return for helping these young girls out. You can only wonder. Now, one former guest, a fashion photographer who is not named, said, quote, "There were always dramas because the men threw money and drugs at them to keep them enticed." And also added, "It's based on power and dominating girls who can't push back and can be discarded, there's always someone to pick them back up. Nobody wants to call home and say, help me. So that right there is so incredibly predatory and just incredibly gross. All right. Now, the photographer who asked to remain anonymous, as I mentioned, over possible lawsuit concerns, recalled that Trump would go from room to room checking out his guests as they partied with the girls and young women. Again, older people in the industry. Former guests recall, quote, a lot of sex, a lot of cocaine, top shelf liquor, but no cigarettes, because Trump didn't approve of smoking. Well, of course, the man's got to have some standards, doesn't he? The photographer and a male model who attended the party said that they never saw Trump use drugs himself, but said he, quote, was getting laid like crazy. The photographer said Trump was at the heart of it. He loved the attention, and in private, he was a total effing beast. Hey, evangelicals, is that your guy? Is this your Christian Messiah? The guy who was an effing beast at cocaine sex parties with underage girls? Hoping to be models? Really? So now the heart of the matter here is, did Trump actually partake in sex with girls who were underage? I don't know. In fact, Andy Lucchesi, who's still a model, said he couldn't be sure how old some of the girls that Trump had been partners with were at the time. But nonetheless, here you have this, what was it, back in 96. So Donald Trump's somewhere around 50, 60 years old, right? And he's having sex with girls that could have been as young as 15 years old. Or as old as what, 18, 20, 24? Super, super gross. Super gross guy. Now, I've got a quote here from Lucchesi. He says, so he's a man with a woman. A lot of girls, 14, look 24. That's as juicy as I can get. I never asked how old they were. I just partook. I did partake in activities that would be controversial too. So there's somebody there who's like, man, I don't know. They were 14. They might have looked, or they might have been 14. They looked 24. I don't know. I didn't ask. I just had sex with them. And Donald Trump, he did too. He probably didn't ask at all. Oh, that's so gross. Now, what does that tell you? What does that tell you? If that account is true, then it would appear that Trump, along with other powerful men who were also there, would be child molesters. Statutory rape. And yes, that could also include Bill Clinton, which, by the way, Bill Clinton, he's the other part of this story, right? And he was friends with Epstein. He says, oh, no, I haven't been friends with him for over 10 years, man. 10, 15 years. Not interested in Jeffrey Epstein, right? Well, when he was interested in Jeffrey Epstein, he ended up borrowing his jet. This was after the Clinton presidency. That jet, private jet belonging to Epstein, was called the Lolita Express. Now, he said, I only borrowed his jet a few times for, like, just different events. Flight logs had him borrowing that jet over a dozen times. Bill Clinton could also be involved. And so we'll have to see on that one. Very, very interesting. As for Trump, of course, he said, I also denied being friends with Epstein years and years ago, 15 years ago. Well, that would be in 2004, right in the middle of when Epstein was being investigated. Interesting. So when he's getting in trouble, well, Donald Trump's no longer his friend. Kind of funny how that works out. But look, here's the thing. Let's not forget how Donald Trump knew what Epstein was about. And here's why. This is based on his own quotes. He said back in, he told Trump told the New York Magazine, that, quote, I've known Jeff for 15 years, terrific guy. He's a lot of fun to be with. It is even said that he likes beautiful women as much as I do, And many of them are on the younger side, no doubt about it. Jeffrey enjoys his social life. He knew. Come on, he knew. He knew what this is about. He knew what Epstein was up to. And look, if this is true, he might have also partook in this, which wouldn't shock me, by the way, given Donald Trump's history of, again, the Access Hollywood tape where he bragged about grabbing women, the numerous rape allegations against the president, and because what he has himself bragged about doing. He walked into a women's changing room, which again contained girls as young as 15. In fact, here's his quote on that. Well, I'll tell you the funniest is that I go backstage before a show. This was the Miss USA pageant, right? And he said, everyone's getting dressed and ready and everything else. And, no men are anywhere. And I'm allowed to go in because I'm the owner of the pageant. And therefore, I'm inspecting it. I'm inspecting. What are you inspecting exactly? I want to make sure everything is good. I mean, it's so obvious what he's doing. He says, quote, the dresses, is everyone okay? They're standing there with no clothes. Is everybody okay? And you see these incredible looking women. And so I sort of get away with things like that. But no, I've been very good. What does that even mean, dude? What does that even mean? Now, not only that, but you had another account that backed that up. Maria Bellato, former Miss Vermont Teen USA, she said, quote, I remember putting on my dress because I was like, oh my God, there's a man in here. Trump, she recalled, said something like, don't worry, ladies, I've seen it all before. Gross. Now, three other women who asked to remain anonymous also remembered Mr. Trump entering the dressing room while the girls were changing. Again, so there's at least four girls who said he barged into the changing room while these girls are changing. Two of them said the girls rushed to cover their bodies, with one calling it both shocking and creepy. The third said she was closed and decided to introduce herself to Trump. So look, at the very least, Donald Trump's a terrible person. We knew that already. He objectifies women, young girls, and at worst, he was along with Jeffrey Epstein in writing the Lolita Express. Assuming, of course, all of this is true, and look, I've got no reason to doubt it based on what we've seen so far. But I guess maybe we'll find out more concretely now that Epstein is being investigated more fully and might more fully cooperate. We'll see, but we can already see now that it's making rich and powerful people who were involved in this very nervous. Okay. All right, so let's get to a policy perspective here. Let's talk about medicine. Okay. Now, one of the things that President Trump has been trying to do is trying to rein in drug prices. Now, has he been successful? Largely, no. According to analysts at Wells Fargo, pharmaceutical companies have been, instead of lowering prices, have been aggressively raising their prices. Now, Wells Fargo analysis of Wolter Kluwer Price RX data found that companies have raised medicine costs by 27% on average last month. Now, they get into further details on which companies have been doing this. A subsidiary of Teva Pharmaceutical Industries hiking the price for a generic antidiuretic by 909%. 909% for a generic. Hey, we think we can make money off this antidiuretic drug or diuretic, and so let's just raise it by 909%. Now, you guys might have remembered or recalled the story that I did from an insider in the pharmaceutical industry. This is a woman who worked for Eli Lilly, and she said that the conversations that they had when discussing how much to charge for a particular drug were completely arbitrary. Where at first they said, well, okay, let's do $500 a dose. And then somebody in the meeting just said, let's do $10,000 a dose. With no justification, no explanation. And furthermore, even worse, the boss saying, you know what? I agree with that because if it were your grandma on the table, well, you wouldn't hesitate to pay that price. I mean, it is truly a sickening thing that we see in the pharmaceutical industry. Now, more examples here. Closely held Epic Pharma LLC came in second of the top price increases, jacking up prices on two versions of its drug by 399%. Merck & Company, Fresenius SE, Novartis, AG Sandoz, and Spectrum Pharmaceuticals Incorporated were on the list. Wells Fargo had found that there were more price increases in June overall compared with the previous month. Drug companies have raised their cost of 106 medicines compared to 101 in May, according to analyst David Maris. Now, in a note, he said this, quote, and this would be why they're continuing their aggressive price increases. Quote, it appears to us now that criticism from politicians and the president has quieted down. Companies are more aggressively and broadly pursuing price increases again. We are not so confident that the lull in criticism will continue and can foresee more negative headlines in the coming months. No kidding. Really? No, I mean, when you raise your the price of a drug by 909% for no other reason than to fill your pockets, yeah, of course you're going to get negative headlines. I mean, it's freaking ridiculous. Now, what is the administration doing about it? Again, Donald Trump promised, I'm going to bring down drug prices because right now what they're doing is they're getting away with murder. I agree with that. Now, Trump, one thing he attempted to do, and, you know, look, I'm going to explain first what it is and why it wouldn't be all that effective, but at least it's something. He attempted to force companies to put prices of their drugs on air. Now, that wouldn't be entirely accurate, as that's not necessarily the price that you would pay, but more your insurance. And by the way, that's probably one reason why your insurance is so high, because these drug manufacturers basically say, we want the maximum amount that insurance companies will pay, and they pass on the cost the insurance companies do to you in the form of really, really expensive premiums and co-pays and deductibles. Now, the rule would have required all drug makers to include in their television commercials the list price of any drug that costs more than $35 a month. Now, you guys know there ain't a lot of drugs that cost less than $35 a month. So this would be very impactful industry-wide. Now, the reason that I say that it wouldn't be effective is because while it would show prices and provide some transparency, would there be a whole lot of incentive to change that? I mean, yes, now you know that these drugs are super overpriced. Maybe that will create more outrage. Maybe that will, you know, try to shame these companies into lowering their drug prices. But as you can see already, it really hasn't. I mean, as soon as there's a lull, as soon as there's a you know, not as many negative headlines about drug pricing, they immediately more aggressively push up their prices. So what we've been doing has not been effective. Now, here's the thing, though. This thing that would have not been very effective at all, really, but would have been, I guess, better than nothing, was rejected by an Obama judge. I'm not kidding, right? An Obama-era judge. Now, to be honest, he's like, okay, you have to go to Congress. You can't just order these drug companies. You have to have an act of legislation. And so he wasn't necessarily against the rule itself, but was against the implementation. And so, okay, look, if Congress can get together, do that, that would be at least something, but again, wouldn't really do anything to lower drug prices. Now, the other plans from Donald Trump and his administration is urging them to do voluntary price decreases. Hey, drug companies, you should lower your price. You know what they're going to do? Number one, they're going to laugh in your face. And number two, they're going to continue to raise prices. I mean, oh yeah, no, we're gonna ask a corporation to take less in profit. How do you think that's gonna go? Not very well. Now, Trump also said he would be issuing an executive order on pricing, but there's really no detail. Other things that the administration has come up with is proposing allowing older adults to more directly benefit from drug rebates in Medicare. Wow. And tying the cost of some drugs to the price in other countries. Well, that might be a little bit more effective, a little bit more interesting. How about allowing the importation of cheaper drugs from other countries like Canada? And that might help. Reining in Big Pharma. But so far, nobody's really done anything or proposed anything that is effective that could get through Democrats and Republicans in Congress. And by the way, a lot of the criticism, yes, can be lobbed at Donald Trump or some of it, but also a lot of can be pointed at the Democrats or Congress as a whole. Why? It's because both parties receive a lot of money from drug companies. The pharmaceutical industry is one of the biggest lobbyists in Congress. Now, Republicans do get more in lobbying from these companies, especially in recent years. But let's not forget, a lot of Democrats have taken a lot of money from these companies as well. So they bought essentially both sides. And that's basically disincentivized them to come up with a real solution. And that's all while these companies continue to rub it in our face by raising prices of drugs by 900%. If you've been wondering why this problem has not been solved, it is because there is a lack of will to do so. And the reason there is a lack of will to do so is because of the money. It is the corruption. That is what we are facing. That is why we have to get the money and therefore the corruption out of our politics if we're ever going to solve this issue or any other issue that impacts Americans' lives. Right now, these drugs are out of reach for a lot of Americans. There are people that are dying from lack of access to these drugs. There are incredibly expensive insurance premiums now, partly because of this, partly because of the profit motive, and mostly having to do with, of course, the fact that these companies have a gigantic influence on our politics and our politicians. Remove the corruption, and you can solve these issues, and you can actually have a healthcare and a system and a government that works for us and not these corporations whose sole job is to maximize profit at any cost. Remember, one of the bosses of Eli Lilly said, hey, look, if your grandma's on the table, you will not think twice about paying our outrageous prices for those drugs to save her life. That is the mindset. That is their mentality. They have no humanity and no shame because these corporations are robots. And we have to rein them in and eliminate their ability to influence our politicians. Okay. All right, so here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take a quick break. We'll come back. We'll do more stories. We got AOC versus Nancy Pelosi. That's a fun story. So stay tuned for that. Please like and share the stream. And I will take your comments and read some super chats as well if there are any. And we'll be back in a couple minutes. Stay right here. Around the Nation. We'll be back. Welcome back to the show. Around the Nation right here. TOT Nation. Jeff Waldorf here with you. Okay, so now following the break, I've got some super chats, well, a super chat, and some member comments to read. I love these. First super chat from Jedi Mullet 77 says, single payer Medicare for all, no exceptions, no so-so, pro-insurance approach. Oh, and impeach Pelosi. Yes. On target. That's a great tweet. I'm sorry, great comment. Then, member comments here. First, we'll start with Sarge Tech. Says, Medicare for all will take the wind out of these drug companies who hold us hostage to get the drugs we need to stay alive. Yes. What's built into the Medicare for all bill would allow, of course, Medicare to negotiate drug prices with these companies, which right now they're not allowed to do. So that would definitely be a way to, because the government is their number one customer. And under Medicare for all, they would definitely be their number one customer without the insurance companies. And the government, since it likes to save money and wants to save money, will say, hey, you know what? You can take your really expensive drug prices and shove them up your ass. We're not going to play that game anymore. We're done with this. So you negotiate on our terms, and we would like you to completely drop those insane prices. And by the way, dropping those prices doesn't mean that they won't make a profit. And it doesn't mean the government will not let them make some sort of profit. But right now, the profit margins of these companies is absolutely obscene. And nobody should get rich off life-saving drugs that people need to survive. All right, LL says about the Epstein stuff. Jeffrey Epstein got a non-prosecution agreement because of what he knows about other powerful people. Nothing else makes any sense. Even bribery couldn't get someone out of charges like these. That is interesting. That is an interesting take. And maybe that, yeah, it does make you think about it, doesn't it? And then Zasira says there's a court document with an underage girl, her friend, and she told about it, and an Epstein agent that said Trump had molested her. Again, that wouldn't surprise me if it were true. And Valerie Valoy, non-member comment, says, cocaine, great. Underage girls, great. Cigarettes, no, that's disgusting. Donald Trump for you. And then Jump James says, they're evil robots. What I said about corporations. No, well, here's the thing. Robots can't be evil because they're immoral. They have no feelings. They have no ability to, what they do can be definitely perceived as evil. But they themselves have no morality. Their entire purpose is to maximize profit. That's why you have to put rules on them. That's why we have to put controls. We have to build something into the circuitry to go with that, robot example to make sure that they don't harm humans. And unfortunately, what they're doing is that they don't have that circuitry. They don't have those commands. And so in their drive to maximize profit, they hurt people, regular people, okay? While making, of course, everyone else very, very rich. All right. So thank you for the comments. As usual, fantastic. All right. Moving on. All right. Let's see. Here we go. All right. So this will be a fun segment. Now, on Saturday, House Speaker Nancy Pelosi decided she wanted to punch left after being called out for basically writing a blank check to Donald Trump on the border. Now, Pelosi, in an interview with Maureen Dowd, said this, quote, all these people have their public whatever and their Twitter world. Now, she was referring to, of course, the squad, or 4 Democratic women, including AOC, Ilhan Omar, Ayanna Pressley, etc. Now, She continued saying, quote, "But they didn't have any following. They're 4 people, and that's how many votes they got." Now, obvious condescension is obvious. I mean, there are only 4 people. They ended up getting 4 votes. Actually, there was a lot more votes for the House version of that bill that actually put in some controls on how the administration spent the money on migrant detention. And a lot of that money was supposed to be spent on improving the conditions in these migrant camps, right? Now, in response, Open Markets Institute fellow Matt Stoller explained how he saw the situation. He said, quote, "This is a bet by Pelosi that AOC is wrong and that the Trump administration will do the right thing on the border with the money that Congress just appropriated. Not a bet I'd make, but okay." Now, when that happened, AOC, of course, called that out. And I said, look, you'd have to be mental to give a blank check to the administration whose cruelty is the point. The whole point is to make conditions as deplorable as possible in order to make sure that people don't come here. They hear about the conditions in their home countries where they're currently being murdered or forced into drug gangs and think, oh, no, America's going to lock up our kids and separate us from our families. Okay, and that has done nothing to actually slow immigration. In fact, we're now at a 13-year high of people coming over the border. A lot of them, of course, are claiming asylum. So now, when you look at it, again, why would you hand Donald Trump a blank check? Ridiculous, right? I mean, but that's what Pelosi had done. And look, I reported because it was mainly because of centrist Democrats. Now, they basically handed any leverage they had over to Mitch McConnell. They preemptively surrendered to Republicans in the Senate. I mean, that's what they do, though. That's what centrist Democrats do the best, is that they preemptively surrender to the Republicans. Great. Now, following this whole thing, AOC said this, quote, "I don't believe it was a good idea for Dems to blindly trust the Trump administration when so many kids have died in their custody." It's up to, what, 10 now? 11? "It's a huge mistake," she said. So was she correct? Well, now we have new data which shows that, yes, she is correct. Mother Jones has just learned that ICE has started using 3 new for-profit immigration detention centers in the Deep South. They use some of that money, I'm assuming, to open those new detention centers. Congratulations. Interviews with lawyers and prison officials and ICE records revealed that the agency has begun detaining migrants at the Adams County Correctional Center. That is a Mississippi prison operated by CoreCivic, the Catahoula Correction Center, a Louisiana jail run by LaSalle Corrections, and one South Louisiana ICE Processing Center run by Geo Group in Basile, Louisiana. Of course. Mississippi, Louisiana. That's where they're keeping a lot of these migrants now. I bet you recognize some of those names. Yeah, CoreCivic, Geo Group, those are for-profit prisons. Now, why are we sticking migrants who have not committed any crimes, by the way, as seeking asylum is completely legal, in prison as if they are common prisoners? And why did the Democrats just give a blank check to Republicans in order to do this? I mean, look, Congress had mandated that ICE reduce the prison population back in February, right? Or, the migrant population. Instead, according to reports, ICE pushed its detention population to an all-time high of about 54,000 people, up from about 34,000 on an average day in 2016, and well above the 40,520 target Congress set for ICE. So ICE basically, under orders from Congress, decided not to follow those orders and to detain even more migrants. We said that was going to happen. Without any sort of provisions to prevent this, without any sort of, controls here, and how we treat migrants. Instead of improving the conditions in these places, they just open up new facilities and shove them in there. Well, hey, look, we're solving the problem. You said there was overcrowding at these concentration camps, so we'll take them out of this camp and put them into another camp. That's not solving the problem. That's actually just moving the problem and then making it worse. Now, Sarah Pierce, policy analyst for the Nonpartisan Migration Policy Institute, said it was unclear where ICE was getting this money. And here's another thing, right? So now, this money is basically earmarked for improving the situation of migrants, right? But without any sort of controls, we don't know exactly where it's going, what it's being used for, or if it's being used for what we're saying, what we're being told it's being used for. And ICE appears to just not even need funding at this point. They're operating without being granted more money. Where are they getting that money from? Of course, they're getting that money from what Congress had appropriated for other things. Other things. Congress made a point of not giving ICE additional money for detention centers, but they're getting it somehow. And that's what happens when you appropriate money without any sort of safeguards. That's what happens. And you had Nancy Pelosi and the centrist Democrats that trusted the Republicans to do the right thing. I mean, isn't that amazing? That led AOC to basically do a big told you so on Twitter. She said, quote, DHS and ICE, responding to this report, are flagrantly violating congressional orders, just as we said they would. Yet, it was Ilhan Omar, Ayanna Pressley, and Rashida Tlaib and I that were wrong to oppose throwing more money to abusive agencies, right? Well, I mean, come on, AOC, you are not a master legislator like Nancy Pelosi. Didn't you know that getting things done involves giving Republicans everything that they want, despite having all the leverage yourself? That is why Nancy Pelosi, I guess, makes the big bucks. Oh, literally, she does make the big bucks. I think she's a multi-millionaire. This is your Democratic Party leadership, by the way. They immediately fold to Republicans. They just do, like a cheap suit. You give them a blank check, and they wonder how the Republicans could act in such bad faith. I mean, we gave you everything that you wanted. Why are you doing the thing that we told you not to do, even though we made sure to not put in any safeguards to make sure that you do the thing that we tell you to do? The Republican Party is nothing but bad faith actors. That's what they do. And for them, of course, the cruelty is the point. And by the way, these centers, when they were prisons, have been known to house people in horrific conditions. For example, inside the Adams County Prison, there were complaints by the inmates about inadequate medical care, staff mistreatment, and even rotten food. They would serve rotten food to inmates. It got so bad in 2012 that there ended up being a prison riot where several inmates were killed, as well as one prison guard. Now, look, I know prison's not supposed to be a vacation, guys, unless, of course, you're Jeffrey Epstein. But people have a right to basic rights like medical care and food, even if you're a prisoner. In fact, isn't the whole purpose of prison to be for rehabilitation so that they can be introduced back into society as a productive member? Well, apparently when guards treat you like animals and garbage and filth, well, look, how does that help rehabilitation? It doesn't, but that, of course, leads into a bigger conversation about how we treat our prisoners, which is basically, compared to some of the other countries in the world, barbaric. But it does help these private prison corporations make a lot of profit. In fact, the Justice Department, by the way, said that it would stop using that prison back in May, which ICE, of course, has filled the void, and ICE makes money off detaining migrants. That's the thing that you have to understand above all else. Not only is the cruelty the point here from Republicans, but also their donors. will make a lot of money from detaining these kids, these families. Anybody who didn't see this coming, Nancy Pelosi, is blind to that fact. The cruelty is the point, and if their donors make an extra buck on top of that cruelty, well, that is a win-win for everyone who's involved who is not a migrant. Once again, Democratic leadership is wrong, and again, they enable Republicans to continue their cruelty. Isn't it time that we replace Nancy Pelosi with a real leader? With somebody who will actually fight? I think it is. Okay. Let's go to Ilhan Omar. Now, on Tuesday night, Tucker Carlson went into a completely racist segment targeting Representative Ilhan Omar. Now, in this segment, Carlson described Omar as, quote, living proof that the way that we practice immigration has become dangerous to this country. In fact, I want to show you that whole segment and his words, and we'll break it down.
Omar isn't disappointed in America. She's enraged by it. Virtually every public statement she makes accuses Americans of bigotry and racism. This is an immoral country, she says. She has undisguised contempt for the United States and for its people. That should worry you, and not just because Omar is now a sitting member of Congress. Ilhan Omar is living proof that the way we practice immigration has become dangerous to this country. A system designed to strengthen America is instead undermining it. Some of the very people we try hardest to help have come to hate us passionately. Maybe that's our fault for asking too little of our immigrants. We aren't self-confident enough to make them assimilate so they never feel fully American. Or maybe the problem is deeper than that. Maybe we're importing people from places whose values are simply antithetical to ours. Who knows what the problem is? But there is a problem. And whatever the cause, this cannot continue. It's not sustainable. No country can import large numbers of people who hate it and expect to survive. The Romans were the last to try that with predictable results.
Ooh. Okay. Look, man, that was pretty racist, even for Tucker Carlson. So this whole thing is, Ilhan Omar tries to make a point that, hey, America is not perfect. America needs to be better, especially when it comes to treating everybody the same, right? Whether it be different skin color, ethnicity, whatever. Tucker Carlson says, oh, no. If we treat everybody the same, well, that's dangerous. Really? Now, look, his response, of course, was referencing a recent Washington Post profile that quoted Omar as telling high school students, quote, I grew up in an extremely unjust society, and the only thing that made my family excited about coming to the United States was that the United States was supposed to be the country that guaranteed justice to all. So I feel it necessary for me to speak out about that promise that's not kept. You can't look at this country and think, no, we totally treat everybody the same. Well, equal, regardless of ancestry, skin color, religion, etc. If you believe that, you are not paying attention. Or you're ignorant. And bless your heart, because you know what? You can actually fix ignorance. Or you could be somebody like Tucker Carlson, and you can't fix that. And look, the reason I say that, look at me, right? I was actually super ignorant before. I didn't know all this was going on, but I learned. I learned that we all have a racial blind spot. We all have our own internal biases, things that we're not even aware of. But we fix that through learning, through education, through talking and listening to other people. Not talking at other people, but talking to, and most importantly, listening to other people's perspectives. Ilhan Omar has a very important perspective as a young Muslim woman who is serving in Congress. Maybe you should listen to her and her criticisms and actually try to understand where she's coming from and understand that she doesn't want to. I mean, it's ridiculous that Tucker Carlson basically believes that, oh no, she wants to come in and undermine America because she is absolutely antithetical to America's values and wants to bring down this country. What a load of horse crap. No, what she wants to do is to make this country a better place, not just for white people like me and Tucker Carlson, but for everybody. Because as a white person, we've actually got it pretty dang good. And I understand if you were somebody who is in a poor area and you're struggling to find a job, I get why you could say, Jeff, that is totally not true, you stupid libtard. I've got it super tough. You may have it tough. And I can agree to that. I talk about economic inequality all the time, and it does affect white people. But where you have it pretty bad, there's a guarantee that there is somebody who is of color who has it even worse. You look at the net worth, the value of a white family versus a black family, somewhere the average white family is somewhere around $50,000, their net worth. Black people, $6,000. They cannot build generational wealth, whereas white people do have that generational wealth. And while there are cases where there is a black person or a Muslim or someone that has ascended to a higher office, in the case of Omar, or has become a wealthy person in America, there is hundreds, millions of cases where that is not the case, and they are not living up to the potential that they have. Tucker Carlson's 100% wrong. Omar is just trying to say that America, hey, look, it's not so good, it's not so rosy. If you look like me, so let's change it for the better. Tucker Carlson says no way, that's not an issue. Why? It's because, for one, he views it from, again, a classic racist perspective. More rights for her, more power for her, means less for us. He thinks that people like her are the real problem. You know what? And he believes that he's a patriot. Let me tell you what a real patriot is. A patriot is somebody who loves their country enough to call it out when it's wrong, when it doesn't live to the ideals of freedom, justice, and equality. That's what a patriot is. Those who refuse that and only give blind patriotism, they are part of the problem. And by the way, getting back to his Rome comment, right? Rome didn't fall because of immigration, right? There were a lot of different factors that contributed to the fall of Rome, including lead poisoning, constant war, income and wealth inequality, barbarian invasions, internal strife and corruption, spending too much on their military and not enough on infrastructure. Oh no. I just realized that a lot of those factors, lead poisoning in Flint, military adventurism all over the globe. Oh no. To be fair, Tucker Carlson also seems to be against the military adventurism. Income and wealth inequality, which is massive. Internal corruption in our politics. Oh my God. Infrastructure falling apart. We are the new Rome, guys. Immigration doesn't seem to be the biggest problem facing us. Now, Ilhan Omar, she responded to this, and she responded in the best way possible. She said, quote, "Not gonna lie, it's kind of fun watching a racist fool like this weeping about my presence in Congress. No lies will stamp out my love for this country or my resolve to make our union more perfect. They're just going to have to get used to calling me Congresswoman." Nailed it. All right. Jesus, I'm just about out of time. Wow. Okay. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to sign off here real soon, but please like and share the stream if you haven't already. Consider becoming a patron, patreon.com/TYTNation if you enjoy the show. If you want to continue to see us running for the foreseeable future, I certainly don't want to go anywhere. I certainly want to continue to do this, and that is one way that you can guarantee that we can continue to do this, despite how, tumultuous being a person on YouTube and social media and doing a show like this really, really is. It is not stable, let me tell you. Patreon.com/DYDNation. to help that out. Consider becoming a channel member. And most importantly, subscribe. I don't push that enough. But subscribing is, first of all, it's a way to continue to get our content. And those of you who are subscribed, remember to hit the bell, ring that bell twice to make sure that you continue to get all of the content that we put up online. So also very important. And to get notifications of when the show goes live. That's something that a lot of people tend to miss as well. So, anyway, Valerie Beloy, hey, thank you, Valerie. I appreciate that. Thank you so much for being a patron. Again, you guys help the show. You keep us alive. So this is your show. Thanks to you for allowing me to do it. Okay. I think that's it. We'll see you guys tomorrow. Make sure to be here 3 to 4 p.m. Eastern. We're going to have some fun stories planned as well. So stay tuned for that, including I'm going to talk about billionaire donor that hates Bernie Sanders. Ooh, that's going to be a good show. So we'll talk about his recent comments against Senator Sanders, this billionaire donor. And it should be fun. All right, guys. Love you. And remember, change begins with you. Good night, nation. We'll see you all Thursday.